Yeah. Desperately in our communities, especially in 2019.
I'm not crazy.
Beautiful day, not a cloud in the sky. As far as the eye could see, there were just people.
It just blew everybody away. We had no idea there would be 250,000 people there.
Mothers with babies and strollers, church women with their church hats and pocketbooks and fancy shoes. And
it was walking down the street like you were moving as part of a glacier.
At that time, the largest assemblage of people in one spot in the history of the United States.
I had no expectation that I was preparing to step into an event that was going to transform my entire life. To be face to face and side by side with people who had made decisions to go up in the face of the police state atmosphere of the Deep South in order to get change was an overwhelming thought to me.
What I was looking for was the spirit, what Dr. King called the beloved community.
We had never worked on anything of that magnitude. Finally, there was going to be a coalition of the civil rights groups, which is what we had been hoping for many years.
We had a sense that we had slogged through some very terrible things. In a way, there was a huge release on that day.
I think there's sometimes when you know something is going to be historic. I remember it was hot. I remember what I was wearing. I remember singing. And I remember that ocean of people. I've never seen anything like it. I remember the electricity in the air.
Music had become the soundtrack of the American conscience, and particularly folk music, more than anything. And it was everywhere.
Whatever the perfect storm was that made civil rights, anti-war movement, the music, the Woodstock, it then included all ages.
And when people heard that and they sang that music together, it provided for them a moment where they weren't simply an audience, they were participants.
even if they go along with their daily lives, they can say, I'm a part of this without being, a card-carrying member of some organization.
Many of the speakers were people whose names were familiar, but you never would get a chance to see them.
It wasn't just that they were sympathetic and very much involved in the ideals of the struggle. It was that that's who they really were. And they were artists and they were superstars. And that you could be both. A powerfully received force, and you can say the right thing. You can have a moral point of view.
I've always resented people who said it was a picnic. It was a day of solidarity. And as a byproduct of that, they saw wonderful things. If you've traveled all night on a bus and you see Harry Belafonte, that's a nice thing. Or if you hear Bobby Dylan sing. But nobody got the same reaction that John Lewis got in his speech or that Dr. King got.
I was aware that this was a time that John Lewis and Dr. King, they were coming into their own.
This is the first time most white people watching this on television had ever seen Dr. King give a full speech. So it was sort of breaking barriers to white people's understanding of the civil rights movement that could not have been done probably in any other way.
Raising these demands and lifting my voice with people who were doing everything they could.
It was a procession of church. It was never ever a march. It was a congregation that was answering the call. Not the speech in itself, but the gathering, that the speech was being given for the gathering.
I couldn't believe it. I've been there for a whole week, and we worked in the office. We've done all these things, and now to see black, white, Hispanic, all religion, being there, it was a very touching moment for me.
For us, in the end of the day, was a complete win-win.
You know, I saw that piece and I thought I'd play that for, instead of the speech itself, because I remember '63, I mean, I was in the service, so, I mean, I was far away from the real hustle. So, but seeing that piece, I remember the way people were in those days, especially in the North. I mean, we were a family. And you can see, after seeing all this, and with the movie stars were there, and then you think 2 weeks after that, we had what kind of bombing in Birmingham, Alabama? They bombed the 4 little girls in Birmingham, Alabama, 2 weeks after this. But the state of affairs today, honoring Martin Luther King, to me, my spiritual hero. And I thought it was touching that we should play something like that to prepare ourselves for today's onslaught of the demonic force in the White House. We have today with us Edgar James, financial man, and who teaches how to make money.
Ooh, yes.
How to save our money.
Hopefully.
And tell us a little bit about yourself, Edgar.
Well, I'm currently in practice down in Brooklyn. I've been having my own
Brooklyn in the house. Okay.
I've been in practice for the past 21 years.
Okay.
Prior to that, I was an agent at Internal Revenue Service, a manager for 5 years after that. Then I was an analyst. At that point, I decided that I would not do government anymore, and I went out and started my own firm. And it's been pretty good. I enjoyed myself and made a living so far. And I'm glad to be able to get that knowledge to share. That's really something that I wanted to do all along. So I've reached the point where I've started another not-for-profit outside of my business, obviously, called the Community Financial Literacy Project. And that's something that I'm really going into full time. I'm doing some writing, going to do some lecturing. So it's developing now. I got my 501c3, all those types of things. Well, the organization has it. I don't have it personally. So the groundwork is being set so that I can go around the community and share some of the knowledge that's required for people to get from point A to B with their finances.
All right. And Anita, tell us what...
Well,
you're dealing with health. And,
yeah.
Huh?
Yes. Thank you so much for having me here today, Mr. Gilchrist. I'm so excited about this moment. I'm here with you beautiful and powerful Black men, so that's really great. My name is Anaya A. with Freedom Entertainment Group and FEG Management, and I'm also representing several entities in the community, as you know, one of them being National Action Network.
Amen.
Amen. Speaking of spiritual, father, I think Reverend Al Sharpton, I have to say, is my spiritual daddy. I call him because his, life is, just following in the line of Dr. King. And so with that being said, I'm here to represent health, physical, mental, emotional health, which is plaguing our communities. And we desperately need a call of action. I am taking a course on February 4th in regards to this, and I'm trying to, do as much as I can in our communities. And I started a movement by the name of A Day of Healing, and I'm looking to go on tour very soon.
All right, let's, you must realize, I should have mentioned that before, Nan is, we're disciples of Martin Luther King.
That's correct.
You see on our wall, we have a huge picture of Martin. That's one of the reasons I'm there, because I'm a disciple of Martin.
That's right.
And we carry on the struggle.
Every day.
But let's show the roll-in for Edgar first, and we'll go, we'll come right back at you. Edgar's roll-in.
My name's Edgar James. I'm coming to you speaking from the Community Financial Literacy Project. That's part of a segment that we previously released some videotape footage on, courtesy of Black Sparks TV, and myself, of course, Edgar James. We're going to today be interested in speaking on some personal savings and personal debt management issues and techniques. So we want to make it a friendly conversation so that we don't criticize anyone. Hopefully we can offer some value added to what's already going on in your life. If you're not saving, we hopefully can give some incentive to do so. Starting with the savings concept. Most people would like to save after they've paid all their debts and all the people that they owe, their mortgage, their rent, what have you. And those are all noble things to do, except most don't think to pay themselves first. If you notice, the concept that the government itself uses is to take their items first. They don't wait until after everyone has paid all their bills to take the taxes and the Social Security, the Medicare, and those issues. So if you had a philosophy for yourself that was similar to the government's philosophy, you'd be able to implement a strategy whereby you could take a percentage of your income for yourself out of every piece of income that you earn, simply based on a concept of 10% for yourself, 10% for charity and the giving to others who need assistance as well, and 80% for the payment of those other things that we, of course, find ourselves having to pay for. So 10%, 10%, and 80% would take up 100% of your available resources. So this is to be applied at any level of resource. Now, I understand that some people may feel that they don't have adequate financing to pay their bills as they come due or to enjoy the things that they would like. But for anyone who does have any revenue coming in whatsoever, a portion of it should be retained for your personal betterment and use in the future. So having that said, we'll go to where I got this philosophy a while ago, probably 25 years ago or so, if not more. I hate to date myself as such, but I'll give it 25 years. I picked up a book called The Richest Man in Babylon. Now, The Richest Man in Babylon by George Clason. It's a very interesting book because, in short, it talked about three guys who were friends, and each one was eventually in poverty. The other gentleman got by, met his needs. The third gentleman was exceedingly wealthy. So they had the wealthy guy tell what he did, and he simply...
Now, it's unusual that we should be talking about saving money at a time like this when the federal government's shut down. And we're all looking at possibilities of, you know, but as a be, we should be thinking about things like this, saving for a rainy day like this. But how do you talk to black people about saving money when most of them don't have jobs?
Well, there's a couple of reasons for that, and there are a few reasons why people don't save. When you look at what you're really trying to do, you're trying to build up a couple of basic financial statements that you would possess if you knew and were literate to what the financial statements were. Basically, you would be trying to build a balance sheet and an income statement. The income statement shows your revenue minus your expenses and what you have to dispose after that, or a taxable piece. Your balance sheet is a document that people never think about. It's building up your assets, recording your liabilities, and the difference between those two.
So if you don't
is
have
your
a
net
job, how can you even think in those terms?
you should be thinking more about getting a job, getting a skill that will allow you to get a job.
Okay.
Because there's two ways to beat it. You can either raise revenue or decrease your expenses. That's all anyone can do, whether they're wealthy or poor. So if you're going to be poor, you have to address the reasons why you're poor. And once they're addressed, you can probably rise above that level.
All right.
Edgar, when is the best time to start? I remember in elementary school, you probably remember, you would bring money to school.
Put it in your piggy bank?
And it was in in Brooklyn, the East New York Savings Bank had a program with the schools. So our parents gave us money every week, and it was in an envelope with the bank's name and everything on it, and how much you had in the envelope. The teacher collected it, and then the money was sent to the bank. And by the time I got out of high school, I had a sizable amount of money in an account in my name when I was going to college. And children today, you give them money, our people just spend. You know, if you want to make money, you just come to a black neighborhood. And
That's right.
how do we bring that around 180 degrees?
That's a behavioral concern, and it starts, like you said, at the youth age, where you would start with an allowance. If that allowance is for consumerism, then you're teaching the person how to take money and be a perfect consumer, which isn't the idea you have when you're trying to save. So instead of, if you give them their $5 a week or whatever the amount would be, let them know that a portion of that should go toward your permanent savings, another portion toward helping someone, or put the money in church if you're going to do that. And then out of the rest, you can buy your candy and your sneakers and those items. But you would have one piece taught, and that would be permanent savings, that this is what we miss. So we'll start after we're in credit trouble, trying to get our finances together. And this is something that is a behavioral piece that has to be adjusted prior to going into debt. You want to know what your debt level ought to be, or you ought to have a plan for the debt. If you're simply going to run your credit card to its max to buy clothing and go to concerts and travel and things
Christmas.
like that, Christmas, it will wind up that you'll just have a big debt that didn't generate any revenue. That's the problem with debt. So you wouldn't be able to service that debt out of your pay, so you start to kind of juggle back and forth between sources. Again, what has to happen is you have to look at where you expect to be. So our first piece is education. We have to learn what it is we're trying to do. As that goal manifests itself, it comes by applying the revenue that you have. Those are resources that you have. That's why I designed our strategy for anyone, whether you're at $20,000 a year, $100,000. Now the person with zero has a different philosophy. We can't talk finance if you have no finances. So you have to generate some revenue. What's the reason for not being able to generate it? That's where we need to go around the community, raise our skill levels, use the skills we have. We have a couple of different things that we can do.
I tell you one item that I'm truly interested in is medical marijuana.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's coming to the state.
Yeah.
And it should be some way that black people in particular, because we suffered so much on the illegal marijuana laws,
Right.
incarceration is coming and I think there should be some sort of retribution to us.
Correct.
For being caught with 2 J's in your pocket and sent to,
Well,
you know.
Yeah. Well, it's
and
so
then
true.
you develop a mental problem
Hello.
from there.
Well, to add to that and also to share, I'm actually working on building a community with the people that I'm working with on a daily basis in regards to financial planning, in regards to saving and financial literacy, obviously. It starts with education, as he said, and that's the premise of what I do, right?
Okay.
You can't get anywhere unless you're educated. And one thing about our black community, I'm so happy that we're here discussing this, because I don't think I recalled you telling me that I would be with him on today. I think you mentioned it, but I've been so busy.
I wasn't sure.
Right,
It wasn't
right. I remember
confirmed.
Graham. But it's so funny because I literally had a meeting with a beautiful sister a couple of weeks ago who we're going to be working together. And now I would love for this brother and myself and all of us to just exchange information. And one of the things that I honestly see in our Black community, and this is going like obviously on media and things of that nature, and on Facebook and Instagram, and I want everybody to tune in and listen to this because it really touched my spirit. Our community is literally suffering from generational issues, generational curses. I believe it started.
Generational curses.
Correct. It started way before now. It started before, of course, slavery has a big thing, to do with it. But when we started to get our own, let's think about it. When we had things like the Black Wall Street, and when we had, Wilmington and all these communities that were thriving and striving, and then you had the man coming around and burning everything down and taking and taking. However, they're not doing that to the Chinese people. Then they're not doing that to the Jews. They're doing it to us. Why? Because they know how powerful we can be once we put our heads together and finally move forward. And so it's funny because anytime I'm doing my Facebook Lives or I'm on TV or radio, I don't typically talk about finances because one of the issues that I have with the people out there who hate us so much is as soon as we start to gain momentum in the financial game, what happens? We're extremely attacked. And as you can see right now, and not to go off topic, but it's coming back to the mental health and physical health, Bill Cosby, he wanted to buy NBC. Prince wanted to buy Sony. Every time our Black brothers and sisters try to buy something and build, we are attacked. And one way or the other, we have to be at the bottom. And so I'm so excited, I get so, joyful about these conversations because I'm not just sitting here talking about it, I'm doing something about it. And when it comes to these young people, they need to know how to open up a bank account. I had mutual funds and stocks at 15. I withdrew after 9/11. Why? Because I was deadly afraid that I would not have a penny left. And I think now looking back, it was a bad decision. However, I did study abroad in London, England, and I did splurge very well. But I'm just saying, I now know a lot more when it comes to the financial game, and I'm ready to implement a lot more and work with those that want to make a difference in our communities.
So you're one of the immigrants that come here and done well.
Well, my parents were from Haiti.
Your parents were from Haiti.
So I'm first generation American,
generation. Okay.
but I studied abroad in England to learn where psychology
Beautiful.
started.
Yeah, that's an advantage. That's an advantage.
Yeah, and I was one of the only Blacks that did this, and I want other Blacks to be able to do this too.
That's good exposure.
Yes.
Because when you're born here, you come under a different sort of atmosphere, and your self-esteem isn't as high as anybody coming from outside.
Correct.
And particularly New York, I think, is really the beacon for the world, for the planet. I think the center of the universe is right here in New York City.
I think so too.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's run a clip on Anita and show her a little bit.
Wow.
You might enjoy this. Show that other clip. Number 3, please.
Welcome back to PSL Living. I'm Sarah Prohaska, Communications Manager here at the City of Port St. Lucie. We're here right now to talk about another fun event we have going on in August here in the City of Port St. Lucie. This one is at our Port St. Lucie Community Center. It's an annual event brought to you by Freedom Entertainment Group. And I have Anaya A., who has become a regular guest on our show from Freedom Entertainment here to tell us all about it. Anaya, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much,
We
Sarah.
have you here every year because you have been a great community supporter here in Port St. Lucie, and you bring a really good event to us every year to the Port St. Lucie Community Center.
Correct.
This year it's called A Day of Healing.
That's right.
So tell us about this.
So thank you so much for having me again.
Problem.
You already know I love the community, and I fly into town every year for these events. And this year we're having a Day of Healing, which will promote mental health, physical health, spiritual health. And I think it's so important because we're living in a society that has so many problems, right? And each year we have different events that literally combat certain issues. We've had violence, combating violence. We've had so many different issues that we've combated. added. But this year we took a different approach because of all the crime and all the mental health issues we're facing. And of course, we have those that are sick in their bodies, you know, physically, that need the attention as well. So we decided to do a day of healing where we can get together as a community to promote, you know, self-awareness, self-growth. You know, how do we talk to those that are facing tremendous issues with their health, and how do we help them?
Yeah, mental illness is a huge issue, and we've had so many tragedies across the country. A lot of it can be traced back to mental health issues, lack of mental health resources or support. So this
Guidance.
is an awesome thing that you're doing here, and it's free, right? So those who come visit do not have to pay.
That's right.
And it's open all day, correct? So
All
you
day.
can drop in.
Drop in anytime. We usually have a set schedule of speakers. We have set schedules of entertainers. Every year has been different because we don't want to bore people. We want people to come in and feel like they're part of the community. So you can come in and you can stop in and see your favorite friend or hear some great information. Stop by and visit some vendors because we always have a ton of vendors. And even though the format is different this year, we encourage everybody to come in because it's free. Why not come in and get the support you need? And then also throughout the community, we have several different events going on too. So you're not going to be wasting time. Some people think, oh, why should I come to this event when there's other things going on? Because you never know what you can learn and gain from coming to these events.
And who you can help. Maybe you know someone who might need some help. You can get some help for them.
And we have screenings as well. So some of our vendors, some of our vendors set up shop where we have, like, you know, free high blood pressure tests or, you know, different blood tests, you know, that you can send in and check out the blood work and things of that nature. So we've had these types of vendors every year, and we're looking to just keep going forward and getting those that really care about the mind, body, and soul that are coming out and doing this work. And why not support the community? You know what I mean?
Yeah, why not? And, you know, maybe get a little help for yourself or your family or loved one while you're at it.
Exactly,
so last year it was a day of freedom, right? So every year you do this, it has a different kind of a theme, right?
Correct. And it's all like based on like, okay, so I'm very spiritual. I believe in God, so shouts out to God, right? And every year it's like I get this inspiration to do these different events. And literally, I don't know exactly what the format is going to be at first, but it comes in time, especially with the work that I do outside of the city. So when I see different, you know, news reports or, you know, I'm with the National Action Network for.
Oh my God, I'm gonna cry.
Surprise.
Surprise.
You
Oh,
know,
man.
here I have two individuals which I recently know, and I can see a combination of the two here. You know, here at the Gilchrist Experience, everything comes to me spiritually. I believe I've been doing this 20 years, and you know, somehow the day before I do a show, things just seem to gel, seem to be, you know, come together. So we're talking about financial literacy, and we're talking about mental health, and of course, with me and my brother, we're constantly trying to find ways to help us as a people. To free us spiritually, free our minds. If you've got if you got a few dollars in your pocket,
you feel better. You feel better.
you know, you don't go so crazy. You know, and that's really mental security, having some money in your pocket. And we see how crazy these people are going. I really have sympathy for the people that are working hard and not seeing a paycheck. I mean, what Donald Trump is doing to America, I mean, he's really a Russian agent. If you want to see somebody try to destroy democracy, this man has done it well. I mean, you know, I thought he was a dummy, but he's doing exactly what Putin wants him to do.
That's right.
And it's caused havoc and stress. And when the Republicans finally wake up, what kind of wounds and demise? But you can look at the March on 63. When people are rising up, that's why I played that piece. I can see it coming together now, that same spirit. Everybody coming together, not one race, all races. We're coming, Democrats and Republicans, and get away with the Hillary hate and just find out that, hell, we got to become one. And because this man has done a number on us. All of us.
All of us.
All of us.
Well, a lot of people too are totally regretting the fact that they voted for him. So let's put that out there.
But see, it's hard to admit you're wrong.
Right. Well, when you're suffering like this, you have no choice. You're at the bottom. I just saw a clip of this man who's a government worker, an employee, and he's crying like about how he feels so bad that he voted for this man. And it's like a lot of people have told me, because I have conversations constantly, right? And one of the things that I come across is the people's, opinions that we just wanted the lesser of the two evils. And like you just said, let's get rid of this Hillary hate and let's focus on the facts. This man has always said what he was going to do, and even back in 89 or so, I was itty bitty or even not, I don't know. Anyway, he said that he was going to run for president. When he does run for president, he would become a Republican because they're the dumbest of the community.
That's right.
He said this.
Right.
And yet people kind of forget these things. And then one thing that I wanted to point out too is I don't necessarily think everybody's on the same trajectory with him. I think he's really trying to get out of, Cohen having to testify as well as them impeaching him. Because when you look at the situation, Cohen just got up and said, I will testify. And 2 days later, he has a hissy fit, and now we're at square one. So, I mean, I would like to say a lot more about that, but, I'm scared for my life. I'm a Black Haitian American.
Scared what?
Well, I'm scared they're going to, say something or do something. But, I shouldn't live in fear.
What is he going to do?
Don't
listen.
Don't be afraid about that.
You got God on your side.
Amen.
Fear
Yeah.
is a spirit.
Mm.
And if you grab it,
Right.
it's got you.
Gotcha.
All right? Don't
Totally.
be afraid to open your mouth, to stand up for what is right, to speak truth. That's the problem with the country right now.
Yep.
Truth is
black
not being
people.
spoken.
Yeah.
All right?
With black people.
I know it.
The two of you, I'm thinking, looking at your piece and his
Right?
piece,
Right.
there is a
There's a
synergy
team
here.
Totally.
It's a team.
Because the stress that we're seeing on television this week with people that are not getting a paycheck. I saw a woman, she has cancer. They have to make a choice. Does she get her cancer treatment?
Right.
Do they pay rent?
That's right.
These people have children. The stress that's put on the children, the stress that's on the families. So there is going to be some serious breakdown,
Oh, yes.
psychological as well as financial,
Correct.
that people may not come back from. Now the question is, to what extremes are people going to go
Correct.
to in order to feed their children?
Right.
Do you fault a man for stealing to feed his children? Do you fault people for doing whatever extremes they may have to do? And I'm thinking also about what King said about.
What about the FBI agent that's on an investigation and has to put out his expense money?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Can't get it
Right.
back.
Right.
Now we used to do that work.
Without getting paid.
Well, that's the thing, and and I like what you're saying too, because we do have a team right here as we speak, and I'm so happy again that we are doing this. And isn't it a beautiful thing that Dr. King's Day was 2 days ago? I would have never thought in my early years, starting my career, that I would be an advocate, an activist, an educator, and I would be around these tables talking about these issues. And let me share this little story with you guys, just so how you know it's so real. When I was in London, England, during that time, that's when Bush and Blair, do you remember him? Were in
Tony
cahoots,
Blair.
and they were fighting. We walked into anarchy in London, England. I couldn't tell my parents that, hey, they're bombing London every day, there's protests, and I may not make it tomorrow, because they told me not to go, right? You know how
Were
that
you
goes.
hanging out in Brixton?
I was actually in London. I was around the corner from Buckingham Palace, and literally, I apparently was rich then or something they said, but I didn't know. We were just college students having a great time. But I share that story to share one day, and I'm gonna try to keep it short. My professor, God bless his soul, he's passed on, Dr. Luda, he's told us a story that I'll never forget. See, he is a Christian psychologist, and his brother was in the law. He was like a prosecutor. And one day he shared with us that we would never make money being psychologists. And you have a room of like 30 students you're telling this to, we're studying in London to become psychologists. What are you talking about? So I got up, I said, Dr. Luda, what are you talking about? He says, I want you guys to understand that it's no longer about fixing the problem. It's about over-medicating and it's about releasing people into the system to continue the madness.
Right.
He says, my brother,
Ooh.
can you believe this? My brother, and this is the first time I'm sharing this story publicly. I share it on the phone once in a while.
Say
but
that
this,
again.
Right,
Say that again.
This is not about fixing the problem. It's to continue the cycle, to break down. And that's why he was so angry with his brother. He said his brother and him no longer spoke, and they had nothing to talk about because Dr. Luther, here he is as a Christian man, educating the community to do better. And he knows that his brother is all in it for the money. And he told him like this, when you guys send these patients to the mental facilities or to the psychiatrist, what do you think happens? He says they're gonna relapse, they're gonna have to be on some other kind of medication, they're gonna do the crime again, and they're coming right back. So at the end of the day—
Now you're telling me that they were told to release these people?
Correct. And if you look at the judicial system presently, what happens to a lot of the people that are quote unquote unstable or on medications?
How did the courts have it?
And
Planned
literally
genocide.
come back.
Planned genocide.
So literally, this is what we're facing in 2019. And then I didn't understand the gravity of the situation until I got back to the States and started to analyze and
see, here's
talk.
my cure.
Go ahead.
Financial literacy.
Correct.
Cure the mental problems with hemp oil. Medical marijuana.
There you go.
There's an opportunity coming up. I want to see a financial business plan written out for black people only.
Come on now.
Well, if you're going to rely on black people only, you're broke.
Right.
Spiritual people only.
Right. There we go.
Spiritual
Those
people
that care.
Well, you put a
Those that
statement out
care.
there a moment ago. You asked about some of the barriers really to getting into the medical marijuana, or why we weren't present in a big way.
Right.
We got two issues with big pharma and big tobacco.
Oh.
Because as they switch their product line,
Right, exactly.
they're able to capitalize quickly.
Yeah.
And
they're
go
already
right
in
to-
there.
They're big
they
time
are the
in
market.
there. They are,
They're the
yeah,
market.
yeah.
So
All right.
where we look to have a nice community interest, and well, we probably have to up the ante a little bit and not go to a small corner store dispensary. Get one that's 6 blocks long with 1,000 people pooling their money together.
Well, can't we finally do something in our community?
We can, but I think we lack the understanding of some basic mathematics.
Okay.
If you take 1,000 people with $1,000, that's $1 million.
Amen.
Hello.
Every time you do that, it's $1 million.
Amen.
So we're at 1,000 people. If you take 1,000 people wearing fur and just ask them for $1 million or 1,000, we'll have the $1 million. 1,000 times 1,000 is $1 million. Then what do? But nobody puts a plan together. And there's nothing about playing basketball that makes you a financer.
Well, that's one of the
if you
questions
have
I asked you off
$10 million,
camera. How to do this,
$10
right?
million
Right.
a year
Right.
without adequate training and guidance and literacy,
That's right.
you can't possibly expect to wind up doing well. You might do well, comparatively speaking, to a neighborhood that's poor. But if you have millions of dollars coming in mismanaged and you're not encouraged to pool it with several other guys to magnify your holdings, then we're just individuals running around with our heads.
But here we have the opportunity. We see this coming. We know
Some
this is
see it.
coming. It's here.
Yeah.
It's not coming, it's here.
Well, it's already
Right.
too late. If you see a senator quit the United States Senate to go out to Nevada to run the marijuana business, it's late. That's a couple of years after.
How about New York here?
New York is late.
How about Harlem?
There are already dispensaries in New York,
Yes.
and we don't own them.
We don't.
So
How about Harlem?
Harlem has been gentrified, so we're not going to have any there. It's a real
systematic-
sad thing where the
No,
goodness.
no, I don't want to hear that.
Well, I
Well,
won't
you know
say
what?
we
Can I
can't,
say this?
But we would have to capitalize
Right.
seriously.
And how do we
to
do
be
that?
able to
So why don't we
That's
make
what
a
I'm
plea?
asking.
So why don't we make a plea? Because this is my thing. We have to ask for what we want. That's what the Bible says, right?
Right.
Knock and the door shall be open.
That's why
Ask
I'm
and seek,
asking.
and seek,
That's
and you shall
exactly
find.
why I'm
So
asking.
this is my thing. We should make a plea to those that have the money, right? Just today, actually, I saw a few hours ago, Mr. Jay-Z and a couple of his homies, his friends, put $50 million towards jail reform or prison reform, okay? These are the people with the big bucks. We need to be communicating with them. How do we do that? We literally band together, utilize his smarts, your media, my entertainment, whatever we have to do, and then we make a
let's
plan and go
start right
for it.
here.
We're doing that because I'm knocking and I'm asking, Jay-Z, baby, how you doing? Beyonce, hey girl. Because you got to
I
talk
love
to the
it.
wife too.
I love it.
You
Of
know,
course.
we have to.
I think that
Right.
culture starts in the home,
Yes.
not with the masses. Starts in the home, which brings me back to personal responsibilities before you can deal with some of these bigger things. In the literacy, for instance, credit. The dangers of a credit card. Amortization, people don't know about. My son, when he graduated, he and his wife graduated together, and they called me, they said, we got some debt, we got some bills, we got to get out from under this. And I sat them down, I said, take your credit card, the one with the highest interest rate, pay the minimal on the others, and max out your payment to get rid of that card.
That's right. Pay it out.
Then go to the next highest.
That's right.
And just put everything you can on it and pay it off. And in close to 3 years, they were out of debt. So we need to know, and I'm sure Edgar knows, and the principle of 72 and all these different things. Could you just tell people about amortization or the dangers of credit cards? Because what you wind up paying in the end.
Yes, no, it's close.
Astronomical.
There are a couple of types of credit. If you look at a mortgage and the interest is compounded daily, that's going to wind up having you pay 2 times the amount you originally financed.
That's right.
A credit card doesn't do that. They charge the credit charge monthly. But it's what you put on the cards that I object to. If you're starting out a position of 0 and you have no debt, you have no assets, you have none of these things, then your first use of that credit should be something that will hopefully produce revenue. So if you were going to go and buy a house, you should buy, I would hope, your first home would be a 2-family, as opposed to a nice palace that you're going to just have as a burden for 30 years. If you have a 2-family house, you have some income to shield you against that debt service. It's not the debt that kills a person.
Caribbean thought.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, in the Caribbean, and I'll say this too, I think our advantage, and I love my people, and I want to say this, I'm sick and tired of the breakdown, and I want us to all work together, right? There's things that the Caribbean community knows. When you see us come here, we do exactly what this brother is saying. We're buying properties, we're renting out rooms, we're renting out a floor, and we're constantly monopolizing off of what we learned overseas or what have you, because we know how to generate funding. And so when he said that, I'm laughing because that's one of the first things I did when I bought my home. Now this was in Atlanta, a lot cheaper than New York. And I made a profit, a huge profit on it, when all my friends were out splurging on, the Hennessy and whatever else they were spending. And one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is when you buy things on your credit card, like the new clothes, the shoes, the bottle of, Henny at the club, you can't make a profit from none of that. Even a car. What people don't know is when you drive that new car, quote unquote, it depreciates over $15,000 right off the lot. What are you getting back for that car? So if we understood this mindset and we're able to work together, right, as a community like we're about to do, because I feel like we have a powerful team here, we can actually help eliminate a lot of debt in our communities and share the information that we know. Because at the end of the day, what good is it for me to know all of this as a young black sister if I can help my brother and let him know, listen, you're making a wrong move here. Or like Mr. Graham here, who's told his son, listen, if you compile it, I said Graham, right? Is right? Okay, good. If you compile and if you pay off this amount first and then you do this and you do that, you're gonna be out of debt. Because at the end of the day, who's profiting off of all that interest? Not us. Come on now.
That's right.
And when they see us buying their stuff, they're
us
happy.
And them, after most immigrants come here and reap the benefits of the struggle that we went through.
Exactly.
The struggle that Martin just presented. And all immigrants benefit from this.
Yes.
Well, you have to go back and consider the 400 years of slavery, the Jim Crow, the reasons it was illegal to be literate. It was illegal here in the United States to learn how to read. I don't know anybody else in the world that suffered that.
That's it.
But we did here. So looking at why there's a big chasm between us and, say, a majority group, we have to stop analyzing that. That group, that chasm is always going to exist because it was created artificially. What we have to do is look at our own individual selves.
Okay.
That's
now, if I'm okay I can contribute to the collective.
Right.
If I come
Exactly.
deficient, I'm taken away from the collective.
Okay.
So it's an individual thing. We have to look in the mirror and say, what am I doing for my group? Well, first, what am I doing for my family?
Amen.
If I'm not doing anything there, I don't even need to join the group because I need to get my basic understanding together. I was saying some of the things that we do. Excuse me. The credit card situation is one where many people feel privileged once they pull out their black card and set it up on the, well, you got to pay that off every month, so hopefully you have a good income. But what that does is guarantees that you're a consumer. You're going to consume this amount per month and pay us, or we're going to bring the wrath down on you next month. So that is really a silly purchase, to buy a shirt on a credit card. And then next year pay it off when you don't have the shirt in your wardrobe anymore. That's the situation we find ourselves in. Anybody that talks about the credit card is maxed out has to say, what is it maxed out with? And if those things didn't generate income for your family, they weren't good purchases. I used one of the pieces on one of the videos that I put out that if you take a trip to Cancun and you come back and you don't have in your savings the amount of money you spent going to Cancun,
right.
that was a bad decision.
Yes.
You might have had a good time and got a wonderful tan and all that stuff, but it was
Spend
a
your
bad
last dollar.
financial
Right.
decision, and we can't accept criticism for what it is we do. I
That's
just
right.
mentioned the 400 years and the Jim Crow. With all that, we still have to be successful. So that means taking the best of what you can get today and using it
Right.
All right,
for
I'm just
yourself
going to
and
play this
community.
one piece to give us a little insight on the type of what melanin.
Yeah.
Color.
Ooh. Oh, it's worth a lot of money.
All right, let's talk about that. Play that last piece, number 5.
Melanin is a neurochemical that is produced in part through the pituitary and the pineal gland. They both play a central role in the production of melanin, which is ultimately responsible for the color that we have in our skin. Now, historically, it had always been thought that melanin played a significant role in the intellectual propensity of African people. For example, when you study some of the Greek writings on melanin or the color of Africans, many of the Greek philosophers believed that melanin played some sort of a role in how Africans had been able to create and develop some of the sciences that they had come to be known for. So melanin was always considered an intellectual sort of a chemical.
The pineal gland, which produces melanin, it's shaped like a pine cone. And the origin of the word pineal literally means resembling a pine cone. Now, in ancient symbolisms, the pine cone has always been represented because people knew the importance of the pineal gland as it related to melanin and the universe.
Melanin is a molecule. And the concept of melanin is, it is black in its nature. And we find it in the cosmos, we find it in the heavens, we find it in water, we find it in land, we find it in everything that exists.
The sperm of the male and the egg of the woman, they're both layered with melanin. So that when the sperm penetrates the egg, there is a melanin explosion. And that melanin helps to formulate the fetus within that egg. And that fetus is literally coated with the melanin substance. And that melanin substance then goes on to form the brain and the central nervous system. So every human being begins with a melanin explosion.
Melanin is an intelligence. It's an intelligence because it is the dynamic, the primary dynamic in every part of the cell. It's a primary dynamic in the core of the human being as well as to the surface of the human being. Its intelligence is responsible for the forming of the nervous system. Every part of the nervous system has these little black dots all through it, which essentially carry information.
I thought that would stimulate the people that have a little melanin in. So we have the intelligence, we have the spirituality. There's no limit to what we can do.
Correct.
So I leave it open to everyone to consider what we're considering here. I want to see something happen in Harlem with this new wave of money
Oh, yes.
coming to us. Find some way to cure our mental problems, which are mostly financial. That's why we rob, steal, and kill each other over money. So, and we have the intelligence.
Yes.
But we need to just uncover all this stuff.
Well, I think too, what were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say, we have the power.
Okay.
And we don't need to wait for empowerment.
Okay.
We should use the power we possess.
Okay.
And stop waiting for somebody to come do something for us. It's not coming. It hasn't come yet. Yeah, it has to be us.
It has to.
And if we pool resources, the first thing we want to do, I mean, we can do the math on it, but we have to get to a level where we can trust our own brother.
Amen, brother. Amen.
We don't all steal money.
That's right.
We don't all do other than what we say. Some of us have integrity. So we have to put those people in leadership and stewardship roles so that the others can contribute to the collective and have it looked after properly. That's basically what it is. Where does my money go? People worry about it at church even. Where does my money go when I put it in the, well, they would wonder the same if we started a hedge fund that took in investors and invested in the market ourselves. It's always something somebody else does. And it would basically have to originate with us. It goes back to overcoming that history. That 400 years is where we stop.
Yes.
We don't go back to ancient Kemet and find out that we were the originators of language and the arts and everything else. Even in the United States, we're the originators of music.
Yes.
As people use it today, rock and roll, whatever it would be. That came out of New Orleans. So all of it did.
Right.
So we don't claim those things that are ours and then sell them for a profit. We're too interested in collaborations and all these types of things with outside groups before we get our own foundation together. So what they do is wind up coming in and run for president of our organization, take it over.
Right. we have to be
We
in
have to
sync.
hold our own things.
We have to
Prior
be in
to
sync.
integration, we didn't have that matter. We had black businesses, you refer to Black Wall Street and all these other
We
places.
had the numbers business.
That's
We came and took over the
because
numbers.
we were forced to deal with each other.
That's it.
You couldn't go across town and use that account. You had
Well, I
to use
think
yours.
we're forced to deal with each other right now.
Right.
That's the beauty of Donald Trump.
Right.
If there is
I
any
don't know if
beauty
you can
to
put
it,
beauty on
it
it.
was meant-
But you know what's so funny? Well, it's so funny. We as a
Adversity
The
will
torment
take
of
you.
Donald
Exactly.
Trump.
Adversity will take you to a place
That's
where
right.
you really need to be to survive. And if you survive, you can look back at the adversity and see what you learned from it.
That's it.
Instead of talking about the adversity.
That's what I meant.
Surviving the adversity is the important thing. In 1910, the census of the United States said that black farmers owned over 1.3 million acres of land in this country. Today, they don't own 1/10 of 1% of the land. We have drunk the Kool-Aid
That's right.
with integration and walked away from everything that we owned and controlled. I was on Nostrand and Atlantic Avenue the other day.
Oh my God.
We can talk about gentrification.
Okay.
Right?
Whole different cross.
A guy is with a cup, shaking a cup for change, walking into traffic. Guy about 6'2", 6'3", and I'm looking at this guy, he's got his beard on, everything. He's white. White guys are now in Bedford-Stuyvesant,
That's right.
panhandling for money. Black beggars have to compete with white beggars now in Bedford-Stuyvesant. And I'm asking myself, where did he come from?
Right.
He ain't from this neighborhood. Why isn't he where he was, wherever his family are? Why isn't he there? And this is part of the dynamic.
People in the black neighborhood are more sympathetic towards them than in the
Well,
white neighborhood.
now
Well, you know,
they're moving from Manhattan and they're coming
right, they're
into our
coming over.
communities. And what happens is they're even out like renting themselves because the rent has gotten so high due to the fact that they're migrating into different parts. He probably can't afford the rent that he started, paying on a year or so ago when the community first gentrified. Now he's on the street begging.
Or is he being let out by most of these psychologists?
Who clearly,
Could be that, too.
or he's
let out into the
or
community?
already he never got the financial literacy he needed, and he splurged a little too long. Or there's so many different factors. And one of the things that happens in these typical situations is, like you said, we give out too quickly in our communities. When that market hits $1 million for a property, instead of holding on to that property and seeing how you can continue to fix it up and continue to pay on it or what have you, or rent a room or whatnot, you sell. And then they know that once you sell, it's no longer in your ball game, because now that same property that you sold for, let's say $250,000 roughly, now that same property is worth $2 million or $2.5 million, and we can never come back. And another thing about that is, when we're in our communities, we don't take care of our communities. Let's be realistic. The only thing that we cannot reproduce, and I may be wrong about this, but I really think so, is land. We can't reproduce the land that we're on right now. So if we don't take care of the land that we have, we're not a good steward of what we have. Why do we need it? They know that, and they come right in. So that's a whole nother subject.
A legacy.
Hello.
That we fight amongst each other.
In order to build a legacy, we have to seek advice from people who have our betterment in mind, as opposed to a fee, profit, or some of the reasons. That's why some of the advice that I'm giving, all of it through the Community Financial Literacy Project, is free. I'm not selling CDs and workbooks or any of those things.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I don't want to meet at the Marriott and tell people who pay me $50 and go away and do your finances. No. That's not doing finance. That's making me rich. So I'm going to do this. This is free. So I'll get corporate sponsorship and other things to give this away. So that belongs to the people, but what we have to do, and addressing some of the things the sister was mentioning, we have to come to grips with our own personal responsibility for ourselves.
That's it.
When you come into a bunch of money and you've been without, that's why there can be no financial prescription for everyone. Because let's say you're starting at zero. You have a different philosophy that you need to put to work. A person who's already wealthy has a different one. So if you're without and you have all this pent-up demand from not having or being able to buy what you wanted, when you tend to get a bulk of money, you're going to release that pent-up demand. And it's going to go and squander. You're going to go to Miami Beach. You're going to do all kinds of things that you probably shouldn't have done, and you won't figure it out until afterwards. See, that's a behavioral matter that isn't addressed, because everyone says build a legacy, but you first have to start to save. And if you don't save, you're not in the market. If you're saving, you're investing. So one has to do that.
Slight break for a minute. For the Manhattan viewers, thank you for coming to the Gilchrist Experience. Power to the people. The God in me loves the God in you. And stay tuned for more financial awareness and mental
stability.
And mental purity.
They go together.
Yeah, we got another minute for the Bronx.
Yeah,
so we're going to have you back. We have to do more of this.
I'd be glad to come back, and I'm going to join the sister also to find out when we can meet and speak to your group at your venue, mine, however it would be.
Well, yeah, and I just want to
great at
NAN. So we're going to put it out there that it will be at NAN. I already got it started with the process. Yana B. Woodhouse, D. Perk, Ashley Sharpton, let me shout them out, let them know we love them. And of course, Reverend Al Sharpton, because he's constantly talking about progression and education and just stimulation of the mind, body, and spirit. So why not have it at the House of Justice, right? So we'll definitely be doing that very soon.
All right.
Okay. Will you join us too, Mr. Graham?
Not a bad. I can take the train, I can drive, I can walk, I can get there. House of Justice, old spot.
Again, power to the people.
Power to the people.
God bless.
God bless.
Stay tuned for more. The Gilchrist Experience.
All right.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm